This is 5 in 10 from Skywatch TV for Friday, August 4th, 2023. I'm Derek Gilbert. Our Friday 5, the 5 big stories of the week as we head into the weekend. Topic number 5 this week, of course, Trump indicted yet again, third time in the last 4 months. Former President Trump indicted by a federal grand jury earlier this week on 4 counts: conspiracy to defraud the United States, conspiracy to obstruct an official proceeding, obstruction of and attempting to obstruct an official proceeding, and conspiracy against rights. That's a charge that dates back to the Civil War era and the charge that African Americans were being deprived of their rights to vote. Really a stretch here. Special counsel Jack Smith trying to essentially criminalize protected speech, weaponizing the First Amendment, saying, no, that doesn't apply here because, as we told you earlier this week, this would essentially make it really difficult for any defendant in any kind of case to mount an effective defense. It's not clear that what Smith has alleged is really against the law. Smith has to prove that, or must prove that what Trump did was corrupt, in the sense that Trump knew that his efforts to persuade people to do what he wanted them to do after the election were based on no facts, no legal merit. And that's really going to be tough to prove. I mean, Trump could say, look, I thought what I was doing was legal and within my rights, but you're allowed to try to persuade other politicians to do stuff. Again, it's part of being an American. It's guaranteed by the First Amendment. Anyway, the concept of corruption is intended to stop illegal activity like tampering with evidence or threatening witnesses and stuff like that. Not what Trump was trying to do. To put it the way that Smith proposes to use his law, or use the law, it would chill political speech, basically make it almost impossible to mount a legal defense. Even if Trump, as we said earlier this week, knowingly lied to remain in office, that is not a criminal offense. Politicians lying? Oh, shock. Horror. That's never happened before. Anyway, it is telling that in his press conference Tuesday evening, Jack Smith focused on January 6th rather than on the charges that he's put forward, because legal scholars, as with the cases filed against him in Florida and in Manhattan, are looking at this and saying there's no there. But by focusing on the riots at the Capitol on January 6th of 2021, Smith is making it appear as though Trump is responsible for January 6th, but that's not what he's being charged with. Pay very close attention to this. Sadly, theoretically, Trump could, this should be DOA in the court. It won't be, because the judge who's assigned to the case, an Obama appointee, very liberal, and Washington, D.C. is a jurisdiction where the jury pool is going to be 92% likely to have voted against Trump. So he could lose, although on appeal, this will probably be overturned. Anyway, topic number 4, Russia and Ukraine. New developments this week as we appear to be moving closer to some kind of an end game there. Last Sunday, or this past Sunday, I should say, the day after a drone attack on the financial district of Moscow, Ukraine's President Vladimir Zelensky announced he is ready to return war to Russia's own territory. Now, given the lack of progress of Ukraine's much vaunted, long-awaited counteroffensive, they're not really gaining the territory that they wanted to, and they're losing a lot of men and equipment in the process. This may be a Hail Mary by Zelensky to try to provoke Vladimir Putin into broadening the war and extending it to perhaps Poland or Ukraine or the Baltic states, which under Article 5 of the NATO treaty would then kind of obligate the rest of the West, including the United States, to join in the war. That would only benefit Zelensky and not so much the Ukrainian people, but Zelensky. Anyway, the fact that Zelensky feels bold enough to be open about declaring this intent suggests that he's got not many other cards to play. Vladimir Putin told reporters on Saturday before this attack, Russia is always ready for any scenario, which hints at potential direct conflict with NATO. But that said, as we told you earlier this week, influential military analyst Edward Luttwak, who's been advising presidents and multinational corporations on international relations for more than 40 years, wrote in an op-ed this past week, the time has come for a negotiated settlement. Ukraine's counteroffensive is going nowhere. It's just eating up men and material. Ukraine is running out of men of fighting age. And so Russia, which is entrenched now in defensive positions, can just sit back, wait for Ukraine to expend itself, and then sweep in further if they choose to. So let's settle this now because we've got other problems, like topic number 3, China, which is looking at Taiwan and apparently deciding that the time has come to make a move on Taiwan, as others, such as Lieutenant Colonel Robert McGinnis, have suggested that China is going to make its move sooner rather than later. Demographics point to this. The United Nations pointing to China, or looking at China's shrinking population because of decades of its one-child policy, may lose half its population before the end of this century, which means fewer men of fighting age, which means if they're going to do something, they've got to do it soon. And to that end, China replaced 2 leaders of its nuclear arsenal, the men leading its nuclear weapons, the biggest unplanned shakeup in the military in China in the last 10 years. President Xi Jinping also recently ordered Communist Party officials across the country to rapidly increase the supply of farmland by any means possible. As we told you, China produces enough food to feed its population, but not to feed its livestock. So rather than depending on Argentina, the United States, Canada for the grain it needs to feed its cattle and pigs and chickens, it wants to start doing that on its own, because those supplies would obviously be cut off if, in fact, China goes to war and takes Taiwan. Meanwhile, we learned this week about an illegal laboratory near Fresno, California, shut down by feds about 20 miles southeast of Fresno. This building, apparently from the outside, an empty warehouse, until a city inspector noticed a hose running in through a back wall, went in and looked and found a black market type of lab testing facility experimenting on rats with multiple infectious diseases, including the coronavirus, HIV, hepatitis, and herpes. And when federal agents tried to track down the owner of the lab, they discovered it belonged to a company in China whose addresses were all empty buildings and unverifiable locations. They don't know who really owns it. And as we told you earlier this week, the fact that this was being done inside of a warehouse instead of in a lab with biosecurity suggests they weren't really worried about containing the pathogens, which begs the question then, was the Rona really an accidental lab leak? While all this is going on, we got to ask, how prepared is the United States military? Journalist Jordan Schachtel, who publishes his work at Substack, a Substack blog called The Dossier, he obtained a new Department of Defense memo that details special treatment for service members who identify as transgender. Besides surgeries and hormone therapy for service member men and women who identify as transgender, they get an indefinite waiver for physical fitness standards, a waiver for grooming and uniform standards, and service members who identify as transgender will be considered non-deployable for up to 300 days while taking hormones during their transition period. But these hormones are essentially for life, meaning that these service members who identify as another gender become undeployable forever. Unfit, undeployable, our military, less a fighting force and more of a social justice welfare system. This is what we're going to put up against the Chinese dragon. Topic number 2, the coup in Niger. This week we also learned that the military in Niger ousted the government there. The United States on Wednesday ordered a partial evacuation of its embassy there. On Monday, the neighboring states of Mali and Burkina Faso said that any attempt by a foreign power to intervene there, that they support the jihad, or the coup rather, those behind the coup, would be deemed a declaration of war against their own countries. Why is Niger important? Because it is one of the world's largest suppliers of uranium. Europe gets about 25% of its uranium for its nuclear power plants from Niger. Niger apparently willing to look to Russia now for its alliances rather than Europe. Significant. And oh yes, America's got 1,000 troops based in Niger. We fly drones out of an airfield in the country. We'll see how this situation develops. Coming up, a creative home defense system mounted by an 87-year-old lady. Tell you about that straight ahead on the Friday Five.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, we want to make sure you know how you can get your copy of this incredible new book in the John Clash special offer. When you order the John Clash special offer, you'll receive his brand new book, The Law of Attraction, a gateway drug to spiritual heroin. This phenomenal new work challenges the very validity of the dangerous Luciferian, heavily popularized ideology that false teachers and gurus describe as the law of attraction. In this book, John also uses a solid biblical framework to debunk the so-called scientific selling points that the law of attraction is predicated on. But that's not all. You'll also receive the amazing DVD Beyond Supernatural that features off-the-record interviews with popular former New Age author and speaker Stephen Bancars, where he details his long history and involvement with the New Age and shares his personal testimony of deliverance through Jesus Christ. And as a bonus, this DVD also includes the entire original Skywatch TV 5-part series on the second coming of the New Age. Also included in this must-have special offer, the 2-part DVD, Occultianity, how the End Times Church is forming now in preparation of Antichrist, where Donna Howell and Allie Anderson walk you step by step through how a silent, complacent church is inadvertently laying the foundation for the bloodiest cult that the world has ever seen. All of these items hold a retail value of $75, yours now for your donation of only $35 plus shipping and handling, so don't delay. You can scan the QR code on your screen using the camera app on your phone for instant access to this special offer. You can also visit us at skywatchtvstore.com or call 1-844-750-4985 and ask for the John Clash special offer right now.
Topic number 1 today, creative home defense, peanut butter and crackers. Seriously, an 87-year-old woman, retired teacher in Maine, fought off a teenaged attacker and then distracted him with snacks while she dialed 911. Marjorie Perkins, who you see on the screen behind me here, asleep in her bed in Brunswick, Maine, awakened at 2 a.m. to find a person looming over her. Young man said that he would cut her if she made a move. She very swiftly rolled to the other side of the bed, put her shoes on, said, if he's going to cut me, I'm going to kick. Well, he put her up against the wall, began hitting her, but then she grabbed a nearby chair and began beating the young man with the chair. Well, he fled out into the kitchen, and at that point, he said that he was hungry and hadn't had anything to eat for quite some time. Now, no word as to whether this young man was on something. This doesn't sound like rational behavior. But Marjorie, thinking quickly, said, okay, look, I've got some crackers and peanut butter. Have all you want. And while the kid was satisfying his hunger, she called the police. Young man fled before the cops got there, but police dogs tracked him down to a nearby home. He is now in custody. So keep some peanut butter and crackers on hand if you're not comfortable with a handgun. It may just come in handy. Skywatch TV on this week discussing a very important topic, and that is the law of attraction. It is a New Age teaching that claims that you can modify your reality. You can manifest the reality you want by just thinking about it. I would not suggest trying this while you're trying to cross the street in front of a moving bus. That said, this teaching is entering the church under different names, but the idea that somehow we can compel God to give us what we want by praying the right prayer or doing the right thing, that's not biblical. That is New Age. John Clash is our guest on Skywatch TV this week. Joe Horn and the Skywatch investigative team talking about John Clash's book, The Law of Attraction. Our broadcast schedule for the over-the-air program, skywatchtv.com/channels. You'll find the listing there. You can also watch the program right now at our website, skywatchtv.com. All of our video archives are there. You can also get it right now at Roku or Apple TV, or you can find it at our YouTube or Rumble channels right here, or you can download it to your smartphone or tablet. And that's really a good idea because that bypasses the gatekeepers of big tech. Why? Well, who knows? We may say something that at some point violates community standards. We don't even know what it is. This has happened to us on more than one occasion. So download our free app for iOS, Android, Amazon, Kindle Fire phones and tablets. Not only does it get you our video content, it brings into the palm of your hand a calendar of upcoming events, important news updates too that the mainstream media wants you to miss. And we got links to their app stores at skywatchtv.com. Thank you for watching as we keep watch, and have a blessed weekend. I'm Derek Gilbert, and this is 5 in 10 from Skywatch TV.